Tonight on Ukraine Today, unexpected progress in Florida. What did the presidents of the United States and Ukraine agree on, and which issues are still unresolved? Ceasefire. Is Russia ready to take this step, and will the Kremlin agree to return Ukraine's territories? Situation on the battlefield. What is happening in the hottest areas, and why is Ukraine building up forces near Pokrovsk? Keeping a safe distance. Is Kazakhstan really moving away from Russia, and how could this affect Russia's war against Ukraine? All this and more right now. Hello, I'm Volodymyr Robchun and this is Ukraine Today. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and let's get started. A meeting between the presidents of the United States and Ukraine, Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky, took place in Florida. The two leaders discussed ways to end Russia's war, security guarantees for Ukraine, and post-war reconstruction. Here's how President Trump commented on the meeting.
Our meeting was excellent. We covered, somebody would say 95%, I don't know what percent, but we have made a lot of progress on ending that war, which is really certainly the most deadly war since World War II, probably the biggest war since World War II. And I want to thank Steve Witkoff, who's here, and I'd like to thank Jared, who's here someplace. Thank you, Jared. And thank you, Steve. What a great job you've done. Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, and Marco Rubio is here. Thank you, Marco. And Pete Hegseth is here. Those two people are doing an unbelievable job. And the four people on this one are doing, I don't think anybody could do it. We'll see if it gets done, but it's very close, certainly. Nobody would even have a chance of getting it to where it is right now. Nobody would have thought that was possible. So I just want to say we've done very well. We've had discussions on just about every subject, and that includes with President Putin before. And we went into great detail, and we likewise went into great detail today. And it was an honor to have you at Mar-a-Lago.
The Ukrainian leader, in turn, provided more details about the agreements between Kyiv and Washington. Here's what President Zelensky said during the joint press conference with his U.S. counterpart.
20-point peace plan, 90% agreed, and U.S.-Ukraine security guarantees, 100% agreed. U.S.-Europe-Ukraine security guarantees, almost agreed. Military dimension, 100% agreed. Prosperity plan being finalized, and we also discussed the sequencing of the following actions. And we agree that security guarantees is a key milestone in achieving lasting peace, and our teams will continue working on all aspects. We also had a joint productive call with European leaders, like President Trump said already, and a lot of leaders, including NATO and the EU. And we agreed that our teams will meet in upcoming weeks to finalize all discussed matters, and we agreed with President Trump that he will host us, and maybe in Washington, European leaders and Ukrainian delegation, yes, in January. And Ukraine is ready for peace. And once again, would like to thank President Trump for a warm welcome and substantial discussion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr.
I'm pretty sure you already know which issue remains unresolved. Territories. Let me remind you, Putin wants what he doesn't even control. Not that he has any right to claim Ukraine's temporarily occupied territories in the first place. Long story short, all these achievements mean nothing without Russia's willingness to agree to a ceasefire and abandon its aggressive policy.
A peace treaty between Ukraine and Russia is inevitable, and the optimal moment for its signing will come as early as February 2026. Kirill Budanov admitted this during his latest interview. According to the head of the main intelligence directorate, despite all the Kremlin's assurances that the central military district is proceeding according to plan, the real state of affairs at the front for Russian soldiers and generals. Stalemate.
Russian Federation. The Russian Federation does not cease its offensive operation. Yes, they are not have not yet achieved the pace they dreamed of, but they are moving forward.
However, the actual state of affairs at the front is strikingly different from the reports that land on Putin's desk. On paper, Budanov explains the occupying army is doing well in the Kremlin. That's why the bunker dweller sees no reason to sit down at the negotiating table, insisting on the complete capture of the Ukrainian regions written into the Russian constitution.
This is an attempt to gain full control over the Donetsk region. Maximum, let's say, advancement in the Dnipropetrovsk region and continued operations in the Zaporizhia and Kherson regions, which in principle they have never tried to hide. These are, let's say, their main tasks, along with increasing the size of sanitary zones, buffer zones, whatever you want to call them, along the border. In principle, the task for 2026 is Donbas and Zaporizhia. Zaporizhia, the whole region is their dream.
But there is no harm in dreaming. The Kremlin immediately pulls itself up. Kirill Budanov. Thanks to the coordinated work of our defenders, it is becoming increasingly difficult for Russian generals to lie about their successes at the front. And yes, Putin himself is no fool. The endless drone attacks on the Russian capital and key oil refineries in Russia are seriously undermining the Kremlin's desire to keep pushing forward in Ukraine.
Look at how it's become fashionable here to talk about Ukraine's sanctions against the Russian Federation. What is meant are the strikes on the fuel and energy sector. Do you understand what kind of loss that is? Right now, that figure is about 21% of all oil refining in the Russian Federation and everything related to gasoline production. Can you even imagine what kind of money that is? I don't think you can. Let's put it this way, let's just say a lot. Look at everything, and Russia's economy is built on this. Oil, gas, and let's say gold. That's it, there's nothing else. Since the end of spring, Russia has basically entered a steady economic recession. It's not a collapse, but problems are mounting. Take a look at the Russian Federation's budget for 2026. It's catastrophic, well, as it would be for any country, really. Let's take the name Russia out of it and just say it's some country, somewhere. It's catastrophic. All programs have been cut, except for defense. Nothing else remains. So they've already made quite a few decisions. Unpopular and difficult ones. Very difficult and painful for them. This is yet another explanation for the negotiation process.
According to military analysts, with each passing day and every new strike by the Ukrainian armed forces, there are more and more supporters of a ceasefire in the Kremlin.
A negotiation process is definitely needed. There's no way around it, one way or another.
And even though official Russian propaganda keeps repeating on TV 24/7 that the special military operation is going according to plan, both Ukrainian and Russian military personnel understand the reality. The situation at the front is a stalemate, which means it's high time to sit down at the negotiating table.
By calculation, this is the most favorable period for both Russia and Ukraine to achieve something. This is connected to military activity, the heating season, and so on and so forth. There are a lot of factors involved.
It's possible that right at this very moment, working groups from both countries are finalizing a peace agreement. According to military analysts, there are many factors pointing to this. However, this is not being made public.
The negotiation process, if we want to succeed in it, and I'm not just talking about our own case, but as a general formula for achieving a good or at least somewhat acceptable outcome, any kind of result in the negotiation process. This is the principle of silence, of maintaining quiet. No negotiations in the world that fail to maintain silence, especially those dealing with very complex topics like obviously the war between Russia and Ukraine, have ever succeeded without observing a regime of silence. They have always failed.
Knowing Kirill Budanov, I can say with complete confidence that this man is like the wind. He never gives up, so it's quite possible that in the coming months we may finally see the long-awaited ceasefire and an end to the bloodshed, in which, to date, the Russian army has lost, wounded and killed more than 1.2 million soldiers.
Ukraine is fighting for freedom. Support independent Ukrainian journalism so we can keep telling the truth about Russia's war. Click the link in the description to become our sponsor. Now's the time to subscribe, like this video and share it, so more people can see the truth. Thank you, and glory to Ukraine. Here's what happened before the meeting of the two presidents. People holding Ukrainian flags gathered on the bridge near Trump's residence to show their support for Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukraine is building up forces near Pokrovsk. This is necessary for counter-assault operations. Right now, weather conditions remain a serious challenge. Fog helps the occupying forces advance. More details from the battlefield in our report.
A high-level meeting, important negotiations between Ukraine and the United States. Putin and his entourage are launching a wave of fakes and lies to weaken Kyiv's position ahead of the meeting with Trump in Florida.
Today, judging very carefully by your comprehensive reports and by the consistently observed pace we are currently witnessing on the extensive line of contact, our profound and significant interest in the complete and unconditional withdrawal of all Ukrainian military formations from the specific territories they presently occupy is, in actual fact, extremely close to an absolute zero.
At headquarters, the generals reported to the Russian dictator on camera about the complete capture of Mirnograd and Gulyaipol.
The city of Gulyaipol has been liberated. In addition, over the past 2 weeks, 5 more settlements in these directions have been brought under control.
The situation in Mirnograd and Gulyaipol, where the occupiers recently captured a battalion command post, is indeed very difficult. But the fighting in the cities continues. Ukrainian defenders are holding their positions. Assault troops from the 425th Skala Regiment and units of the GUR have been redeployed to Gulyaipol. Mirnograd is in the gray zone. Intense street fighting is underway.
We are still in Mirnograd. Let Gerasimov stop bullshitting and showing off.
The Ukrainian General Staff states that Putin and the Russian generals have started churning out disinformation in order to bolster Russia's position ahead of Zelensky's meeting with Trump.
The highest political leadership of the aggressor state is once again resorting to spreading fake statements about significant successes of the Russian army on the battlefield. In reality, the Kremlin's reports about the capture of the cities of Gulyaipol and Mirnograd are not supported by facts.
Putin is essentially creating a show for Trump. Let's call things by their proper names. This is essentially a one-man theatrical show designed for a single exclusive spectator. Putin continues to try to create that very same, propaganda-driven and manipulative reconstruction, as if everything is going according to their plan.
Meanwhile, Azov, together with the forces of Ukraine's drone systems, are destroying Russian convoys with heavy equipment near Dobropilya. The Kremlin is flooding the information space with lies, manipulation, and disinformation.
In Kupiansk and the city of Krasnoarmysk, the enemy has found itself blocked and surrounded. By the way, I have thoroughly discussed this significant issue with the esteemed commanders of the respective military groups. They are absolutely not opposed. Indeed, they are quite amenable to the proposition of allowing authorized representatives of the media, specifically foreign journalists and correspondents, to gain access into the designated enemy's encirclement zones or areas of containment.
Today, the Kupiansk direction, our soldiers here are achieving results for Ukraine. The Russians talked a lot about Kupiansk. We see it. I congratulated the guys. Thank you for every congratulation to everyone fighting here, to everyone destroying the occupiers. Today, it is very important to achieve results at the front so that Ukraine can achieve results in diplomacy.
Earlier, hoping to influence Donald Trump while the Ukrainian armed forces were successfully counterattacking in Kupiansk and driving the occupiers out of the city, the Russian dictator and his military political entourage publicly lied about the situation at the front.
Is the continuation of the war a desirable scenario for the Russians? Well, that's debatable because there are major systemic problems in the Russian economy. So, will they be able to maintain this pace of warfare for a long time? No. By the way, Budanov mentioned this in one of his recent interviews, but they will keep up appearances. They'll put on a brave face in a bad situation and continue fighting, trying to show that they can supposedly achieve their goals by military means and methods.
In reality, as reflected on the front line, if the Russians achieve any minimal advances, it comes at the cost of enormous losses, both in equipment and personnel.
Over the past day alone, Russia lost at least 1,100 80 troops killed and wounded. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, Russia's total losses have reached 1,205,690 troops. In the last 24 hours, Ukraine's defense forces also destroyed 3 Russian tanks, 6 armored combat vehicles, 13 artillery systems and dozens of other pieces of enemy equipment. 2 more Russian war crimes were recorded. The occupiers executed 3 Ukrainian soldiers south of Gulai-Pole in the Zaporizhia region, and 2 captured Ukrainian soldiers in the Pokrovsk district. These crimes took place on December 20th and December 27th. Ukraine's general staff confirmed a strike on the Syzran oil refinery in Russia's Samara region. This facility supplies its products to the Russian army, making it a completely legitimate target. In addition, Ukrainian forces struck the enemy Valdai radar system, a command post of a radar intelligence complex and a storage and launch base for naval drones. All of these targets were located in temporarily occupied Crimea. Explosions were also reported in the Luhansk and Donetsk regions. Russian repair units and a drone storage facility were hit. And finally, about the global consequences of Russia's war against Ukraine. Kazakhstan has opened more than 700 criminal cases against its citizens who fought on the side of the terrorist state. Authorities in Astana have also decided to transition to NATO standard weapons and deepen cooperation with the United States. Does this mean Kazakhstan is distancing itself from Russia? The answer in our report.
The Kremlin likes to say, what about Kazakhstan? An ally and a brother, a quiet rear, people for the front, money bypassing sanctions and loyalty by default.
We have a special relationship with Kazakhstan. That's obvious. Everyone understands it well. We have an allied relationship in the most literal sense of the word.
But in reality, Astana itself is moving further away from Russia with each passing day.
Mr. President, I greatly appreciate your unwavering support for the development of multifaceted Kazakh-American cooperation. And I firmly believe that you, Mr. President, are a great leader, a statesman sent by the heavens to restore the common sense and traditions that we all share and value. And
is taking a demonstrative step by condemning its citizens for fighting on Russia's side against Ukraine.
The authorities of Kazakhstan are carrying out mass persecution of participants in the war in Ukraine. In 2025, local law enforcement initiated a record 700 cases against those who enlisted in Russian military formations. In such cases, the courts do not care where the accused served. They hand down identical sentences both to Wagner PMC fighters and to those who signed contracts with the Ministry of Defense. From the perspective of Kazakhstan's criminal code, all of them were carrying out criminal intent by participating in the war.
Kazakhstan has never really supported the Kremlin's military adventures, but this was a punch in the gut for Putin. Although for Astana, such a decision is logical and necessary.
This speaks to the rather sensible policy of the Kazakh authorities. In very simple terms. They understand perfectly well that Kazakhstan could be one of Putin's next targets. That's why it's essential to build, as much as possible, not even so much an agitation campaign, but to ensure that citizens clearly understand what's happening in Ukraine today. That this is an imperialist war waged by Russia with the aim of redrawing current borders. And accordingly, any other post-Soviet countries, and not only post-Soviet countries, could become targets for Putin. And that's why, of course, it's important to conduct explanatory work with our own citizens.
These are not just words, this is what, albeit quietly, Putin actually wants. And he's wanted this for a very long time. The US has declassified transcripts of Putin's conversations with President Bush from 2001. From these, it follows that Putin regards Kazakhstan the same way he does Ukraine. Supposedly, the entire territory of the country is a gift from the Soviet Union.
The Russians gave away thousands of square kilometers of territory voluntarily, Putin said, to Bush in the summer of 2001. It's unheard of. Ukraine, which had been part of Russia for centuries, was given away. Kazakhstan was given away. The Caucasus too. It's hard to imagine, and it was done by the party leaders.
That's why Kazakhstan is working day by day to distance itself from Russia. It's not about breaking off relations, but about being able to conduct foreign and domestic policy without looking back at Russia.
Even now today, Russia has significantly diminished its significant original historical influence in Kazakhstan. China's influence there is quite strong, Turkey's influence is strong, and the influence of the United States is also present. That's why I think that in this situation, Tokayev will draw even closer to some alternative international allies, realizing that he needs serious protection from Vladimir Putin's militaristic and expansionist policies.
A slap in the face for the Kremlin was Kazakhstan's decision to launch a project to produce weapons according to NATO standards. In Russia, this has already been called an unfriendly act. Moreover, Russian politicians are saying that Kazakhstan is being turned into yet another Russophobic outpost.
This immediately raises the question, why is NATO so interested in Kazakhstan in particular? Maybe it's because it borders Russia, and from this country yet another Russophobic outpost could be created.
But again, this is Kazakhstan's contribution to its own security, because with a neighbor like Russia, you can expect anything.
All existing Russian military models, in fact, are quite significantly outdated. Therefore, of course, from the crucial perspective of national defense capability and strategic advantage, it's much more strategically interesting and beneficial to produce modern NATO standard weaponry and equipment. So this important development once again clearly demonstrates the remarkable prudence and foresight of Kazakhstan's current leadership.
While Russia is at war and ends up on blacklists, Kazakhstan is becoming a country with which it is profitable and safe for the West to make deals. In particular, Kazakhstan is deepening its cooperation with America.
Kazakhstan and the United States have signed an agreement worth $17 billion. Kazakhstan is granting the United States access to its tungsten deposits. Trump invited Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan to the G20 summit in the United States.
But obviously it's not just about resources. After the visit of Kazakhstan's President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev to the US, experts began actively discussing that Kazakhstan is now within Trump's sphere of interest. After Tokayev's visit to Washington, Russia also began circling around him from all sides, likely sensing that its ally was slipping away. Even the foul-mouthed propagandist Solovyov toned down his usual fervor and reacted calmly to the development of relations between Kazakhstan and the US.
The longest borders of the Russian Federation are actually with Kazakhstan. Now, many people are saying, well, the leadership of Kazakhstan was in America. They were. Did they talk to Trump? They did. So what do you expect?
Kazakhstan has quite specific economic and political objectives. Kazakhstan is in a very difficult geographical position. On one side is giant Russia, on the other is giant China, of course. First and foremost, the leadership of Kazakhstan is interested in the interests of its own people and its own country. With
welcome banners all over Moscow. A week later, it was Putin who welcomed Tokayev.
Dear Kassym-Jomart Kemilovich, good evening. First and foremost, I sincerely want to express my profound gratitude to you for graciously taking the time out of your busy schedule to come, precisely as we had previously agreed upon, on a significant official state visit. I am sincerely glad about this.
As a result of the negotiations, Kazakhstan and Russia signed a treaty on comprehensive cooperation.
President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, and President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Kemilovich Tokayev, are signing the declaration on elevating the interstate relations between the Russian Federation and the Republic of Kazakhstan to the level of comprehensive strategic partnership and alliance.
But experts call this agreement an empty shell because after it was signed, absolutely nothing changed in the relations between Russia and Kazakhstan.
It was more like, well, a significant ritualistic visit, really, because behind any substantial concrete actions, there absolutely should be very clear and precise agreements, and indeed very clear and binding treaties. There is nothing more concrete there, aside from pretty words. A bit more of an Eastern cunning. Yes, like we'll say to you, yes, yes, great Tsar, we'll nod along to you. But in reality, we'll be developing cooperation with completely different countries and building our own foreign policy, in fact, moving away from Russia, not getting closer to it. So in my opinion, that's exactly what this shows.
It's obvious that today this alliance exists only in words, Kazakhstan isn't showing an anti-Russian stance, it's simply acting in its own interests. And for the Kremlin, that's probably even worse than open confrontation. After all, it turns out right next door, there's a country that no longer asks for permission.
That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Thank you for your support. Strength to Ukraine's defenders. Glory to Ukraine. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment and share. See you next time.